The unshakable self. We live in a world designed to trigger us. A careless comment, a late reply, a passive-aggressive glance, and suddenly, you're spiraling, angry, frustrated, consumed, as if someone else's behavior has hijacked your peace. But what if it didn't have to be that way? What if your emotions weren't hostages, but choices? This is not about indifference. This is about inner architecture. The emotional fortitude to remain unmoved, even when the world rattles. The lie you've been sold, they told you anger is natural, that it's healthy to express it, that you should vent, scream, punch pillows, anything but hold it in. And yes, emotions need acknowledgement, but not all of them need permission to lead your life, because every time you react, you give power, you give control, you give yourself away. To reclaim your power, you must reclaim your response. The pause that changes. Everything between the trigger and the explosion, there is a pause, a breath, a choice, a sacred split second where you can say, "Not this time." The Stoics lived in that space. They trained for it. They practiced it until it wasn't just philosophy, it was identity. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." And that realization is emotional freedom. You are not your reaction. You are not the flush of heat. You are not the clenched jaw. You are not the rising volume of your voice. You are the one who notices all of it. You are the space behind it. You are the decider. And once you remember this, people stop having the power to ruin your day, because nothing ruins your day unless you choose to give it permission. Reclaiming the remote. Think of it like this. Your emotions are a remote control. If you hand it to others, they can flip your mood like channels. Kindness, you're smiling. Criticism, you collapse. Approval, you rise. Disapproval, you shut down. But what if you kept that remote to yourself? What if no one else had access to the volume of your peace? That's not fantasy. That's practice. The calm that commands respect. Here's the irony. People listen to you more when you speak less. Not out of silence for weakness, but because your silence is anchored. It says, "I don't need to raise my voice. I am the voice." You can't fake that. You can't buy that. You can only become that by refusing to be dragged into drama that doesn't deserve your presence. The strategy of stillness. So what do you do when the world pokes at you? When the insult lands, the traffic stalls, the tone shifts, you pause, you breathe. You ask 3 questions. What emotion am I feeling? Why am I giving this so much power? What would my highest self do right now? That pause is your sword. That reflection is your shield. That response, not reaction, is your liberation. You don't have to prove you're angry to be strong. They told you anger equals strength. They lied. True strength is restraint. True power is the ability to remain calm when you could explode. It's when someone provokes you and you smile. Not because you're fake, but because you're free. It's when you choose peace, not to avoid conflict, but because conflict doesn't deserve your time. That's not weakness. That's mastery. Every reaction is a decision. You don't lose your temper. You choose it, even if it happens fast, even if it feels automatic. Somewhere inside, you said yes to letting it run you, but now you know better. Now you're aware. And awareness changes everything, because now every time someone tries to push your buttons, you realize, I built the panel, and I can disconnect it. The freedom of being unbothered. Imagine walking through your life and nothing rattles you. People gossip, you're unmoved. Delays happen, you're grounded. Plans shift, you adapt. Tension builds, you breathe. That's not coldness. That's clarity. That's the quiet power of someone who doesn't need life to cooperate to feel whole. That's the life Stoicism was designed for. And it's the life you can build, starting now. The warrior who doesn't react. There's a kind of warrior who doesn't swing back, who doesn't shout, who doesn't flinch when challenged. Not because they're passive, but because they're prepared. Their armor? Emotional discipline. Their weapon? Stillness. Their battlefield? Themselves. This isn't a metaphor, it's a lifestyle. And it begins the moment you stop confusing reaction with response. The real fight is inside. You think the problem is them, their attitude, their comment, their mistake. But the Stoics knew the real enemy is within. It's the story you create, the assumptions you make, the pride you defend. That's the war. And it's a war you can win without raising your voice. Because the moment you become master of your inner life, the outer world loses its grip. You are not here to react. You are here to rise. Every time you don't react, you reclaim elevation. You rise above insult. You rise above ego. You rise above chaos. And in that rise, you no longer fear being misunderstood. You no longer chase the last word. You no longer feel the need to win small battles. You've chosen peace, not because you're weak, but because you've finally realized how much strength silence actually holds. Decide who you are. Before the world tries to decide for you, if you don't define yourself, the world will try to do it for you. You're too soft. You're too quiet. You're too calm. Let them talk. The Stoics didn't explain themselves. They lived their code, so silently joyful, so deeply rooted, that the noise bounced off them like arrows off steel. You don't owe anyone your temper just because they lost theirs. Decide who you are, and then live that decision. Especially when tested, you can be aware of your emotion without becoming. Anger will rise, frustration will come, annoyance will knock. Let them. You don't have to open the door. You don't have to invite them to stay. You can notice without becoming. You can feel without acting. You can observe without identifying. This is not suppression. This is sovereignty. The ability to see your storm and not become the thunder. Others will not understand your calm. Let that be your power. They'll try to provoke, try to bait you, try to shake your stillness. Because your calm triggers their chaos. Let it. Because the one who cannot be rattled holds the real power. They may call you distant, cold, detached, but deep down they know you've found something they haven't. And until they do, they'll try to pull you down to where they are. Don't go. Freedom begins where offense ends. The Stoics never said you'll never be insulted. They said it doesn't have to matter. Epictetus taught, it is not things that disturb us, but our opinion about them. Let that sink in. You are never offended by what was said. You are offended by what you make it mean. Change the meaning, and the emotion evaporates. That is power. The power to reframe, to detach, to walk away internally, even when you stand still externally. Retaliation feels good, but response builds legacy. It's easy to clap back, to tear down, to dominate, but easy is never noble. The Stoics chose response over retaliation, not to be liked but to be free. Because when you don't carry the weight of anger, you have more space for truth, for love, for clarity. And those who master response leave behind a legacy not of dominance, but of depth. Peace is not the absence of conflict. It's the absence of ego the world will keep offending. Keep clashing, keep provoking, but when you drop the need to be right, you rise into something else. Peace. Not because the noise stopped, but because you stopped needing it to. And that shift, that's the moment your happiness is no longer tied to how others act and go, but to how you respond. And that kind of happiness, that's untouchable. The man who cannot be moved, you've seen him. The one who walks through conflict like a mountain, who doesn't raise his voice, who doesn't defend himself with fire, who looks back at aggression and simply sees through it. He's not avoiding. He's not suppressing. He's mastered the one thing most never do, his own nervous system, and because of that, he becomes unshakable. The one who has nothing to prove. When someone insults you and you don't respond, people think you've lost. Let them. The man who needs to prove he's strong is still insecure. The man who knows he is strong has no time for debates. This is the paradox of power. The more you own it, the less you need to show it. And that quiet power, that unbothered energy, that invisible gravity, that's what draws people in without trying. Anger is easy. Alignment is mastery. Anyone can get angry. Anyone can slam doors, raise voices, hit send, spill emotion all over a moment that needed clarity. But mastery is pausing. Choosing alignment over impulse. Choosing clarity over chaos. Choosing peace not to avoid the fight, but because you've outgrown it. That's not silence. That's strategy. That's not weakness. That's wisdom. When you become the container, you know what most people do? They become the room they walk into. Someone's angry, they match it. Someone's sarcastic, they snap back. Someone's anxious, they absorb it. But the Stoic doesn't mirror. The Stoic contains. He is not a reflection. He is a container. He steps into noise and brings stillness. Steps into drama and brings presence. Steps into fire and stays cool. That containment is not natural. It is trained, and it makes him the one person in the room who holds the real control. The storm within you is not who you are. The thoughts will come. The heat will rise. The story will spin. But you are not your first reaction. You are the one who witnesses. The one who pauses. The one who chooses what lives and what dies in your mind. The Stoics called it prohoresis, the faculty of choice. The power to respond as who you are, not as what you feel in the moment. And every time you choose from that place, you strengthen your soul's authority. They can trigger you, but you can disarm it. Yes, people will provoke. They will poke at old wounds. They will say the exact thing that cuts deepest, but your peace is not a negotiation. It's not up for auction. It doesn't belong to them. So when you feel that old heat, you do what the Stoics did. You observe. You detach, you translate the insult into information, and then you decide who you want to be. That decision, that is freedom. You don't need closure. You need control over yourself. Not everything broken will be fixed. Not everyone rude will apologize. Not every situation will resolve neatly, and that's okay. Because Stoicism teaches you this. You don't need closure. You need command over your state. The conversation doesn't have to end in peace. For you to walk away in peace. Let that be enough. Let you be enough. They don't have the power. They think they do. They raised their voice. They tried to shame you. They said the thing they thought would destroy you, and yet, here you are. Whole, calm, breathing. That's the secret they don't know. The less you react, the more power you keep. The less you engage, the more space you reclaim. The less you personalize, the more free you become. You don't need revenge. You just need return to yourself. Unbothered doesn't mean disconnected. It means directed. This isn't about pretending. This isn't about building walls or faking peace. It's about direction. You've chosen where your energy flows. You've chosen what matters. You've chosen what deserves access to your nervous system. And most of the noise doesn't qualify. You're not cold. You're clear. And that clarity becomes your calm. The art of inner immunity. What if your emotions were not glass, but granite? What if your soul wasn't a sponge for offense, but a sanctuary of stillness? What if no matter what came at you, you stood, unmoved? Not because you're numb, but because you've become immune to everything that doesn't deserve your reaction. This is what the Stoics trained for, not to feel less, but to absorb less of what doesn't matter. Your ego is the real trigger. It's not the words that hurt. It's what they hit. A pride you've wrapped too tightly. An identity you've made too fragile. A validation you still seek outside yourself. That's what makes you reactive. But when you disarm the ego, insults lose their aim. They bounce off. Not because they didn't land, but because they landed on someone who no longer needs to be defended. That's the goal. Strength without armor. You can feel disrespected and still respond with dignity. Someone disrespects you, cuts you off, dismisses your work, questions your value. Your body tightens, your mind flares. You want to show them. But silently strong people know. No one can disrespect you deeper than you disrespecting your own self-mastery. So they don't react to prove a point. They become the point. Their restraint says everything. Their silence echoes louder than shouting. And their dignity becomes a wall no insult can climb. Don't trade your peace for a temporary victory. You could win the argument. You could dominate the room. You could say what cuts deepest. But is it worth it? One win, one ego boost. In exchange for your inner stillness? The Stoics would say no, because any victory that costs you your calm is too expensive. They chose long-term peace over short-term pride. And that choice, that's what made them timeless. The person who can agitate you, owns you every time you explode, they win. Not because they were right, but because they could move you. And if they can move you, they can own you. But when you stop being moved, you become untouchable. This isn't about dominance, it's about sovereignty. Your emotions belong to you, your responses are your territory, and not everyone gets a passport. Response is always a reflection of identity. You don't respond based on what happened. You respond based on who you've decided to be. Someone insults you. Are you the one who reacts, or the one who transcends? Someone disrespects you. Are you the one who bites back or the one who stands taller? Every moment of tension is a chance to reaffirm your character, not for them, not for the world, but for the person in the mirror. You don't need the last word, and you need the final piece. They keep pushing, keep twisting the knife, keep trying to get a rise, and you could go back and forth forever. But what if you didn't? What if you let them talk? Let them vent? Let them be seen, guy, without giving them your spirit? Because sometimes the last word isn't said, it's walked away with. That's power. That's poise. That's stoicism in motion. Nothing is personal until you make it. So, someone is rude. Someone blames you. someone gossips. But what if it had nothing to do with you? What if it was about their wounds, their fears, their chaos? Silently powerful. People never ask, how could they do this to me? They ask, what pain are they carrying that made this necessary for them? And in that question, they create a distance, a wisdom, a freedom. Because when you stop personalizing pain, you stop inviting it in. Control is found in letting go not of standards, not of values, but of attachment to how others treat you. You cannot control their mouth, only your mind. You cannot control their volume, only your response. The Stoics didn't detach from love. They detached from illusion. And when the illusion died, they became the most grounded people in the world. When you become untouchable, they can say what they want. They can act how they want. They can try again and again to rattle you. But inside, you're still, not frozen, not numb, just free. Free from needing to defend. Free from needing to retaliate. Free from needing to teach someone a lesson they're not ready to learn. That's not detachment. That's discipline. And discipline is the language of freedom. Control the input. You. Control the impact. The mind is a container. If you let anything in, don't be surprised when chaos spills out. So silently powerful people guard what enters. The energy, the tone, the content, the company. They don't consume what poisons their peace. They don't linger in rooms that disrupt their clarity. They don't chase drama just to feel alive, because they already are alive, fully, quietly, consciously. And that aliveness is their immunity. The one who listens before responding always leads. Most people listen to reply, to argue, to interrupt, to defend. But silently strong people listen to understand. They slow down their mouth so their mind can catch up. They don't race to win, they wait to discern. And that patience, that presence, that posture, it shifts the whole dynamic. Because when you're truly grounded, you don't need to control the conversation. You become the conversation. Stillness is a form of speech. You don't always need to say it. You don't always need to react. You don't always need to make it known. Sometimes you just need to stay still. And in that stillness, they'll see everything. Your strength, your clarity, your refusal to lower your frequency. Because when noise meets silence, silence always wins. Not by overpowering, but by revealing. How you handle provocation reveals who you really are. It's easy to be composed when praised. Easy to be kind when respected. Easy to be calm when unchallenged. But the real test is this. When insulted, can you still be wise? When pushed, can you still be peaceful? When misjudged, can you still be grounded? That is the crucible. That is the classroom. That is the character that no one can fake. And every time you pass that test, you leave with more than pride. You leave with power. They are teaching you, through their behavior, who not to be every rude person, every manipulative tone, every passive-aggressive jab, every energy vampire. They are all teachers, showing you what you no longer tolerate, what you've outgrown, what clarity now looks like. Silently strong people don't just resist bad behavior, they learn from it, without needing to engage. And that lesson is priceless, because it sharpens the boundary, without bruising the soul. You're not here to win every battle, just the one that matters. You could fight them all. Correct every lie, respond to every slight, prove every point. But at what cost? Your joy? Your time? Your peace? The Stoics remind us, win the battle within, and the rest becomes noise. You don't need to prove your worth. You need to live in a way that reflects it. Let that be your quiet, permanent victory. Mastery is quiet. You'll know you've grown when you no longer need to declare it. You don't need to announce your evolution. You don't need to post your restraint. You don't need to explain why you didn't respond. You just don't. And in that silence, you radiate something stronger than words. Authority, alignment, and an unshakable calm that no insult can breach. When they can't pull you, in mud you set them free. Some people feed off reaction, off drama, off control. But when you no longer react, you no longer play their game. And when the game dies, so does their hold on you. Let them twist. Let them wonder. Let them spin their narrative. You owe them nothing. Not your energy. Not your retaliation. Not your explanation. Just your absence and your peace. The strength of the silent one. He doesn't explain himself. He doesn't chase being understood. He doesn't argue just to be right. Because he's no longer trying to win people. He's focused on mastering himself. You know this man. You feel him when he enters the room. He doesn't raise his voice, but somehow the whole room listens. Why? Because his silence is anchored. It's earned. It's not withdrawal. It's witnessing. Being calm is not a trait. It's a choice. You're not born calm. You become calm through failures, through reflection, through thousands of small unseen moments where you could have snapped, but chose stillness instead. And each time you did, you rewired yourself. You stopped waiting for the world to calm down. You became the calm. And that shift, that's the beginning of real freedom. You're not here to compete. You're here to align. Most people enter every situation as a battle, a power play, a contest. But silently strong people walk in aligned, not armed. They're not trying to dominate. They're not trying to impress. They're not trying to prove anything. They're just clear. And that clarity, it makes them unshakable. Because when you're not pretending, you have nothing to defend. When you choose to let it pass, that insult, let it pass. That provocation, let it pass. That tension in their voice, let it pass. Because just like a storm, not everything needs your umbrella. Some things are meant to move through. Don't hold it. Don't store it. Don't become it. Just let it pass. And what stays is your center. Being understood is not the goal. Being grounded is. You will be misread. You will be labeled. You will be underestimated. Let them. Because silently powerful people don't need to be understood, they need to be authentic. They speak when it adds clarity. They walk away when it protects peace. They are okay with not being liked as long as they remain true. That truth is their North Star, and when you follow it, you no longer lose yourself to public opinion. You don't need to answer every invitation to conflict. Not every message deserves a reply. Not every challenge deserves a counter. Not every fight is yours to join. Stoicism teaches you to discern, not just endure. Ask yourself, does this serve my values? Does this lead to clarity? Does this protect my peace? If the answer is no, you owe no further explanation. Your silence is not avoidance, it is selection, and that selection is power. You are not the emotion, you are the container. The anger is not you. The reaction is not you. The heat is not you. You are the one who sees it, the one who holds it, the one who chooses what to do with it. You are not a product of emotional winds. You are the sky they pass through, and the sky never apologizes for the weather. It simply holds space until it clears. So do you. Inner peace is a silent roar. It doesn't raise its voice. It doesn't demand validation. It doesn't need applause, it just is. And once you build it, people feel it even before you speak. They feel it in how you walk, how you wait, how you don't flinch, how you don't fight for attention, because attention quietly finds you. That's the gift of mastering your reactions. You become the calm in a world on fire. The end of emotional slavery. Most people don't realize they're slaves, not to chains, not to orders, but to emotions they never chose, and to reactions they never questioned. They wake up in moods they don't understand. They explode at triggers they never examined. They spend their day reacting, defending, explaining, as if someone else owns their nervous system. But silently strong people, they've broken that chain, because when your peace is no longer dependent on external behavior, you are free. Let go of the need to correct everyone. You don't have to fix every wrong opinion. You don't have to respond to every slight. You don't have to make sure people see it your way. You just have to see yourself clearly, because the Stoic doesn't fight to be right. He fights to be aligned. And when alignment is your goal, a lot of battles stop being interesting. They stop being necessary. They stop even feeling like battles. You see them for what they are, invitations to lose yourself, and you politely decline. Not reacting is not suppression, it's self-respect. There's a difference. Suppression is fear. It's avoidance. It's shoving emotion into the basement and locking the door. But Stoic restraint, it's conscious, it's calm, it's respectful. You respect yourself enough to not let temporary feelings define your permanent character. You acknowledge emotion, but you don't obey it. You let it rise, you let it speak. And then you lead it back to silence. That's not weakness. That's kingship over your own kingdom. Choose inner cleanliness over outer vindication. Revenge feels good for a moment. Exploding feels powerful for a second. Clapping back feels justified until it costs your calm. But silently strong people care more about the state of their inner world than the outcome of outer drama. They clean their own space. They take responsibility for what they carry. They let others keep their mess, because nothing sticks to someone who's already decided to stay clean inside. Stop needing them to be better for you to be at peace. You keep saying, I'll be calm when they change. I'll be okay when they treat me better. I'll feel peace when they stop. But that is emotional dependency. That is giving them the keys to your nervous system. The Stoic doesn't wait. He decides, not because it's easy, but because he refuses to be enslaved by someone else's immaturity. Your peace begins where your dependency ends. You don't need permission to be at peace. Most people are waiting for closure, for apology, for someone to finally get it. But silently powerful people don't wait. They don't beg. They don't postpone their joy. They decide right here, right now. I release it. I forgive. I let go. I move on. Not because it's fair, but because it's freeing. That's the difference. They choose healing over being right. Freedom over vindication. Peace over ego. And in that choice, they rise. You're not here to react. You're here to build. While others argue, you build. While others gossip, you grow. While others spiral, you ground. While others explode, you expand. Because you have better things to do than explain your soul to those not ready to listen. You're building a life, a rhythm, a character that doesn't depend on chaos to feel alive. You are building inner architecture, So strong you don't need to be seen to be stable. Reactions are cheap. Presence is rare. Anyone can react. It takes no training. Just ego and impulse. But presence? That's rare. To sit with discomfort, to breathe through insult, to listen with intention, to speak with clarity, to walk away. Not in silence, but in sovereignty. That is a presence people remember, because it says, I'm not here to fight, I'm here to live intentionally, and that changes the entire energy of a room. The stillness they can't steal. What do you have that no one else should be able to take? Your peace, your focus, your presence. But most people give these things away, for free. Someone cuts them off. They rage. Someone ignores them. They spiral. Someone disagrees, they defend, and with every reaction they lose themselves. But the Stoic, he guards his peace like a sacred space, because he knows, once you lose your stillness, you lose your center. And from that moment, you're no longer free. You're chained to chaos. The wisdom of letting things slide. Not everything needs to be addressed. Not every offense needs confrontation. Not every slight needs balance. Sometimes the highest response is none at all, not out of fear, but out of wisdom, because not everything deserves your fire. Not every situation is worth your nervous system, and the man who knows this, Squire, walks with a kind of lightness that no insult can weigh down. They want to fight. Give them your absence. Some people don't want resolution. They want reaction. They're not seeking understanding, they're seeking energy. Yours. But what happens when you don't give it? What happens when you don't flinch, don't reply, don't return the fire? They're left alone with their chaos. And in that silence, you've given them the only mirror they'll ever respect. Not your words, your absence. That's the kind of statement they can't talk over. You can't always control the situation, but you can control the space you occupy inside. Imagine a storm, wind, rain, lightning, chaos everywhere. But in the eye of that storm, stillness, that's who you are meant to be. Not untouched, but undisturbed. Not immune to life's pressure, but unmovable in your response to it. You are not the storm. You are the eye. And in that place, everything changes. Not because the world stopped, but because you stopped needing it to. Your calm is a disruptor. In a world addicted to reactions, your calm is a revolution. People won't understand it. They'll poke it. They'll test it. But deep down, they envy it. Because in your silence, they see what they haven't yet built. Control, clarity, containment. Don't trade it for anything. Don't let their noise become your narration. Let your calm ripple outward and shift the room without ever raising your voice. You are not here to be unshaken. You are here to return to stillness, faster. This isn't about never feeling angry. It's about returning quicker, recovering faster, breathing sooner. It's about shortening the space between reaction and realization. That's mastery, not never falling, but learning how to stand again without dragging the whole world down with you. The Stoic doesn't pretend to be perfect. He just stops using imperfection as an excuse. They can't pull you into what you've outgrown. Once you've healed something, you no longer argue about it. Once you've transcended something, you no longer fight for it. Once you've outgrown someone's way of speaking, you don't try to fix it. You simply move differently, and silently they will feel the shift. Not because you've changed them, but because you've stopped letting them change you. That's the quiet strength they'll never understand and never forget. Keep building the inner world no one sees, The outside doesn't always match the inside. They'll see a calm face, but they'll never know the work it took to get there. The mornings of reflection, the nights of restraint, the battles you fought inside your own ribcage when won. That's what Stoicism is, not philosophy, but practice, not ideas, but identity. And once it's who you are, no one can take it from you, because what was built in silence stays, even when the noise returns. The power of non-reaction. You don't win by reacting. You win by remaining centered, remaining rooted, remaining yourself when every part of you wants to strike, defend, collapse, explain. Because reaction is cheap. It's everywhere. It's instinct, but non-reaction, that's art, that's training. That's philosophy in motion. Anger is loud. Peace is precise. Anger is a firecracker, quick to explode but quick to fade. Peace is a blade. Clean, quiet, sharp. You won't see it coming, but it ends cycles. The Stoic doesn't throw punches. He slices with clarity. He ends the conversation, not with insult but with absence. Because nothing silences the world like someone who no longer needs it to agree. You don't owe a reaction to every feeling you have. Feelings are signals, not instructions, but most people obey them like orders. I feel offended, so I must attack. I feel insecure, so I must perform. I feel slighted, so I must prove. But silently powerful people pause. They ask, is this feeling true? Is it useful? Does it match my character? And if not, they let it pass. That's not denial. That's emotional maturity. Forgiveness is not for them. It's for your nervous system. You don't forgive because they deserve it. You forgive because you deserve freedom, because holding on keeps you wired, keeps you tense, keeps you in reaction long after the event is over. But when you release, you reset. You reclaim your breath, your clarity, your right to move on without dragging their story with you. Forgiveness is the final act of power, not approval. Release. The one who responds last controls the tempo in every conflict. Someone sets the rhythm. The one who yells first, they think they've won, but they've just lost timing. The Stoic doesn't rush. He doesn't match volume. He listens like a surgeon, then speaks with surgical precision. One sentence, said calmly, said slowly, and the room changes. Because true power doesn't chase dominance. It commands respect through stillness. Your reaction is not the only truth. Just because you feel hurt doesn't mean someone hurt you intentionally. Just because you feel disrespected doesn't mean someone is against you. Sometimes your wound is talking, your past is talking, your pride is talking. So stop. Breathe. Ask, where is this really coming from? And in that moment, you stop reacting to ghosts. You start responding to reality, and reality is never as offensive as your assumptions. Emotional control is not suppression. It's creative power. When you control your emotion, you don't lose your fire. You aim it. You don't go cold. You become conscious. You don't numb yourself. You become useful to others, a source of calm in their storm. And that transformation is what makes you unforgettable. Because in a reactive world, your quiet presence becomes a lighthouse. Not everything needs a witness. You don't need to post every piece. You don't need to share every restraint. You don't need applause for every act of self-control. Let it be unseen. Let it be yours. Because real growth is sacred, and sacred things are not for show. So when you don't reply, don't react, don't lash out, smile. Not for them, for you, because you just proved to yourself that you're not who you used to be. They'll keep testing you until they feel your wall, people. Don't stop when you ask. They stop when they feel that you've changed, and they'll keep poking, baiting, pressuring until they realize you no longer belong to the old script. No more reaction. No more dance. No more energy leaks. Just presence. Just precision. Just a clear, solid wall of, this is not where I place my attention anymore. And in that moment, you stop the cycle. Permanently. The precision of a calm mind. In a world of noise, a calm mind is dangerous. Not because it threatens others, but because it can't be controlled. It doesn't flinch. It doesn't fold. It doesn't perform. It chooses every word, every move, every silence. And that kind of mind is rare, is powerful, is liberated. You don't need more strength. You need less noise. You don't need to be louder, faster, tougher. You need to be quieter inside, because true strength isn't built in reaction. It's built in removal. Remove the triggers. Remove the illusions. Remove the need to always be on. And what remains is you, raw, clear, undeniable. That version of you doesn't need armor. It is armor. The strongest people are the most predictable. You know how they'll respond. Not because they're boring, but because they're anchored. They don't escalate. They don't gossip. They don't play games. They move like seasons. Calm, cyclic, consistent. And because of that, everyone around them feels safer. Not because they agree, but because they're stable. That's what Stoicism creates. Not cold people, but safe ones. Silence isn't weakness, it's strategy. The average person talks to relieve pressure. The powerful person pauses to apply it. Because silence doesn't mean, I have nothing to say. It means I don't need to say it right now. It means I value precision over volume. It means I've already made peace, and now I'm choosing my next move. And in that silence, you gain something no argument can buy. Leverage. Not every fire deserves your water. You don't need to rush to solve. To soothe. To jump in. Some fires are meant to burn out on their own. Let them. Let the chaos collapse. Let the ego exhaust itself. Let the storm move through. You don't have to be the fixer. You don't have to be the firefighter. Sometimes power is knowing when not to interfere. People notice the energy. You don't waste, they watch you. They study your stillness. They notice the words you don't say. And in that absence, they feel your presence more. Because in a world where everyone reacts, your restraint becomes volume. Your silence becomes authority. Your calm becomes leadership. You don't chase, respect. You embody it, and people trust what is centered. Stay rooted. Not every wind is worth turning into. Not every comment deserves a shift. Not every tone needs matching. Not every glance deserves decoding. Stay rooted. Let them swirl. Let them speculate. Let them spin. You're not here to be understood by everyone. You're here to be true to yourself. And when truth is your anchor, distraction has no pull. You don't have to teach through words. You can teach through energy. You don't have to preach your peace. You can radiate it through presence, through non-reaction, through the way you say no without explaining, through the way you stay soft, even when others are sharp, because the deepest lessons are never taught. They're lived, and the Stoic doesn't convert and he embodies, and in his presence others start to shift, not because he told them to, but because he reminded them what's possible. The final word is often the one never spoken. You want to say it, to finish it, to make your case. But what if not saying it was the most powerful act of all? What if your greatest wisdom was in your ability to walk away with your energy intact? They'll remember the silence. They'll feel the weight of what wasn't said. They'll sit with themselves long after you've moved on. That's impact. That's legacy. That's stoic living at full power. The quiet that commands. There's a silence that shrinks you, and a silence that commands the room. One comes from fear, the other from fortress-like clarity. Silently strong people don't need volume. Their very presence says, I will not be moved, not by ego, not by insult, not by chaos masquerading as urgency, because they know when you're anchored inside you don't need to react and you simply choose. Respond as who you are, not as who they are. You are not here to match energy. You are here to set the tone. If they bring aggression, you bring presence. If they bring noise, you bring stillness. If they bring provocation, you bring poise. Not because they deserve it, but because you do. Because every time you lower your standard to meet their reaction, you abandon your identity. The Stoic never stoops. He stays. Let people be wrong about you. And keep walking. They'll misjudge you. They'll misunderstand. You're calm. They'll label it as weakness, as arrogance, as avoidance. Let them. You don't owe them access to your full truth. You don't owe them emotional availability just to make them comfortable. You owe yourself integrity. And when you live in alignment, the misunderstanding of others becomes irrelevant. You were not built to be reactive. You were built to be wise. You are not your instincts. You are not your wounds. You are not your triggers. You are the observer, the chooser, the commander of your internal weather. And wisdom isn't found in what you know. It's found in how you behave when provoked, when tested, when pulled, when cornered. That is where philosophy becomes power, and silence becomes leadership. Peace is earned in the tension. You refuse to escalate. They bring heat. You stay cool. They expect a fight. You offer breath. They want a scene. You offer no stage. And in that moment, you've earned something no argument could ever give. Peace that stays. Not because they got better, but because you did. Discipline is loving yourself in advance. It's not just control. It's not punishment. It's not repression. It's love for your future self. The version of you who will sleep better because you didn't lash out. Who will walk lighter because you didn't carry someone else's mess. Who will speak clearer because you didn't waste your voice on temporary tension. Silently strong people know discipline is freedom, and self-respect is the real reward. When you no longer need to win, you've already won. Every argument invites you to fight, but Stoicism invites you to elevate, to ask, is this worthy of my energy? Is this aligned with my values? Will this matter tomorrow? And when the answer is no, you walk, not as retreat, but as mastery. Because nothing is louder than the footsteps of someone who no longer needs to prove anything. Stillness doesn't mean inaction. It means exact action. You don't act out of mood. You act out of principle. You don't rush. You respond when it's time. And when you do, it's surgical, clean, calm, unmistakably clear. That kind of action leaves no echo, only impact. And that's what Stoicism teaches. Move not when you're moved. Move when it matters. The quiet mastery of a Stoic life, no applause, no announcement, no fireworks, just quiet power, built over years, layered through discipline, forged in silence. The man who doesn't react, who doesn't explain, who doesn't chase noise. He is not detached from life. He is deeply immersed in it, but on his terms. He doesn't run from feeling. He simply refuses to be ruled by it. He doesn't need to be feared, to be respected. There's a kind of man who doesn't need to raise his voice to silence a room, who doesn't need to dominate to command attention, who doesn't need validation. To know he's enough because he doesn't lead with ego and he leads with essence. And that essence is built in moments the world never sees. He is not peaceful because life is easy, but because he no longer resists what is. He accepts the insult, but doesn't absorb it. He notices the chaos, but doesn't carry it. He sees the conflict, but doesn't need to win it because the Stoic doesn't fight reality. He flows through it, and in that flow he finds the only thing that matters, inner command, not over others, over himself. Nothing can be taken from the man who owns nothing. Outside himself, take his status, he remains. Take his image, he remains. Take your approval, he remains. Because he's not built on externals. He's built on ethics, on values, on rhythm, on solitude, on decisions made in private when no one was watching. And those roots, they hold, even when the world doesn't. He doesn't just live stoicism, he becomes it, not a quote, not a brand, not a costume, but a walking embodiment of what the Stoics meant when they said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." He doesn't say it, he shows it. In every moment he pauses, in every emotion he filters, in every time he steps. Back him not out of fear, but out of focus. That's when philosophy becomes real. He's not unbothered because he feels nothing. He's unbothered because he's done the work, the inner work, the hard work, the unseen hours of self-interrogation, of truth-telling, of breaking and rebuilding his ego. He doesn't suppress, he transforms. He doesn't perform, he protects. And because of that, he walks into storms without losing his sky. He doesn't fight for control, because he is control not of others, not of outcomes, but of himself. His tone, his attention, his time, his reactions. He has become a fortress with open gates, strong but soft, disciplined but warm, clear but kind. And that paradox, that quiet mastery, is the rarest kind of power. You don't need to become him. You just need to return to who you were before the world taught you to react. Because that man, he's already in you, beneath the noise, beneath the impulse, beneath the habit of explaining, defending, pleasing. There is a center in you that doesn't need to yell to feel powerful, that doesn't need to be agreed with to feel certain, that doesn't need to be seen to feel real. Return to that, and the world will feel your silence long after you've left the room.